I'm going to bring up, and I know Ann can't probably say anything about this because she's party to it. Nobody else is party to it in the room. This lawsuit between T2, our Economic Development Director, and Ann, not only a tribal member, but a tribal elder and also a tribal council candidate, during a tribal council election season. That, to me, I want to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think about that? Is that a good precedence to set? What precedence is being set? Is that encouraging the tribal members to ask more questions and to stand up and say, wait a minute, don't do that, or I have a problem with that? Or is it trying to silence our membership? What's your thoughts?
Go ahead. Who wants to go first? I think it's a fair question. Brenda, please.
I think the lawsuit speaks to the health of our tribe right now. It's sad. It tells the story of how frustrated tribal members are. It tells a story of how hopeless we're feeling and how we don't know what to do. We don't know how to change this because the normal avenues for a complaint or for speaking your mind on change are shut down because of the power struggles, because of the power dynamics, whatever you want to say. Tribal members are feeling so full of distrust. They're feeling like they have no voice whatsoever. They have no place to go. And it is sad. And I think it's going to set some pretty weird precedences.
Sure.
The question about whether or not the actions taken, I think that there was a very good article in the Smoke Signals by Angie Blackwell about how gerrymandering affects votes and how districting in the general population divides votes and lends more to the people that you want to have elected. There are many things that happen. I know that 3 years ago, disenrollment was just beginning. The first one to be disenrolled was my daughter. Happened almost the very same day that nominations took place. Every year there are ways to, it appears like a strategic way to limit the candidate pool and to ensure that your own candidates get in. Whether in fact whether that's true or not, that's my impression. Do I have any proof or any? No, I don't. Have I attended any meetings where that's discussed? No. But that's my impression, that's my observation. And if the voter pool expanded, that's an unknown, so keep it to where it is. So your vote will be steady. You know who your backers are, and so I mean that's the impression that I have, Andy, of how all of this takes place. And coincidentally, it's year after year.
Who'd like to go next?
Any specific comment on this lawsuit and what precedents it sets?
Well, this lawsuit, you know, it's very different in the sense that you have a plaintiff who is an employee. Usually it has been the other way around, so that is very different. Whether or not any of our employees sue other members, or I've never heard of that. I don't know if it goes on or if it has happened. Personally, I have never heard of it.
So Kathy, you had your hand up. Would you like to go next? John, after that. And then we'll let you have any opportunity if you want to comment at all.
what is happening with this lawsuit is unequivocally wrong. What really is, really upset me, not just that this was happening to one of our tribal members, an elder, and also an outstanding person personally, but that a group in Michigan had the lawsuit out on the internet before this tribal member was even served. How did that information get there? That's number one. The other part for me is that they used a private executive letter that could have only come from a tribal council member. That was in the executive session. And it's in this lawsuit also. So private information was given to this person that was only to the tribal council. The other part is, and I talked about this last week, is the tribal council, who has majority, can indemnify this person to pay for his legal fees if they so choose. And I hope that doesn't happen. I truly hope that doesn't happen. That the tribal council is honorable and that they don't indemnify this person against a tribal
Council can pay
membership.
for that against Ann, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Yes.
You gotta be kidding.
No.
No, that's a policy. So,
Gee, Cliff, do you think you'd ever hear about it?
That blows my mind, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that part.
but this is serious because for me, it is, you're trying to shut up the membership. You're trying to put this cloak over our heads. We're going to make it extremely hard for you, and this is how you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it financially because that's how we can get you. And that should never, ever enter into the people that you elect to be the most honorable and trust. So this lawsuit is, all the membership should be against this lawsuit by an employee. I have some concerns, and I think an investigation also needs to be done into this, of where that information that was only given to tribal council, private information, was given to this particular employee. I think another investigation needs to be done, and who gave that to people in Michigan, and also from the tribal council.
John?
Politics can be dirty, and that's usually what tends to happen. You know, and depending on who it is and who's running or what your platform is, you know, or if you render a threat to the balance. In that sense, I've been around long enough, I've seen it happen. You know, it happens to good people. And also taking a good person and making them look bad. To me, it's like, you know, and basically when you see, you know, federal government elections on TV, they want to make somebody look bad as they can. Usually the other side usually wants to make one side look bad, you know. And I guess, and for me, and I'm hoping the membership that see this and stuff too, that you look at actually the people that you know. Do you know them? Do you really know them? Or have you even taken an opportunity to get to know them and who they are and what they stand for? You know, are they honest? Are they ethical? You know, and so for me, that's why I said, you know, the whole politics of campaigning and stuff too is really, it's like make a good person look bad, you know. I certainly hope that people know the people who they're going to vote for, you know, or also know, you know, the dirty politics behind you know, the other people's motives and stuff. So it's unfortunate, you know. You know, being the second time for running for re-election, it's even more so about that, a feeling that, you know, do you have, you know, the skin to take, you know, take the slams, take the discredit, you know. And for me personally, I know that I have to stand up for who I am, what I believe in, and everything. And you know what? And if I don't want to be in this position, then that's exactly, you know what? Then don't run. So I truly do that. And I truly apologize for what's happening also. But since it's in litigation, I truly have to not really, I should say, or probably not really, don't have a comment one way or another from that, but I am truly sorry that it is happening.
And do you want to make any kind of statement at all, or would you rather not? She's been Kathy, go ahead.
The litigation isn't about tribal council. The litigation is about Ann and this particular employee. So it's, I mean, you're not involved in it, the tribal council. Is that, am I incorrect?
Could I ask a
Sure, Mark, go
quick
ahead.
follow? I think, you know, a lot of what goes on between nominations and elections, the general counsel cannot make their voice heard, and there's a reason for that, and I think that there's a reason that it stays that way. We have no general counsel meetings between nominations and elections. So all the crap that goes on, we can't get up at a general council meeting and say, this is bull crap, quit doing it. We don't want that in our elections. Let's change this and make it where we have elections during this, where we have general council meetings during the summer. Comment?
So yes, show of hands, who would support putting general council meetings back in this summer during the election so that the general membership could say, put a stop to the dirty politics?
You're
Show of
asking
hands.
us to raise our hands?
Yeah, raise your hands if you support. And you do want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that. I believe would take a constitutional change. I think that meeting is in our Constitution. But I agree. I think we should make a change to that. I've never understood why we don't have meetings throughout the summer. Why not? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I would like to see that. I think we should have those meetings because business doesn't stop. The tribe operates all summer long, and I think it's an opportunity for things to go slide under the rug.
Very convenient.
Thank you.
So we're going to move to another, go ahead, Cheryl.
There is another alternative that has been proposed. It didn't get the support that it needed, but that was really something that Chris brought forward, and that was to change the elections to the general elections. The national and state ones are generally in November, and so that's also doable. That would allow then, without changing the general council meetings, and still have input from our members during the election cycle.
That's clever. That would essentially, we'd still adhere to the Constitution of having June and July, not having general council meetings, but we'd be able to actually have general council meetings during the election period if we moved to election period. So I want to move to another question, and I think Debbie had her hand up in a second, but I do want to make one small statement about, I'm going to speculate, and I got a sense that both John and Cheryl are limited in how they can speak to the lawsuit. And I'm just speculating because, again, my brother's far too ethical to ever break the confidentiality things, so I just don't know. But I'm speculating that a person employed by a tribe would probably go to the employer and say, hey, I'm about to sue one of your members. So I'm speculating that you all have probably been notified of this, and that's probably why you're not able to speak to it. And I think we should respect that these folks could, by the current majority of council, get in trouble for speaking to it, and I think that's a fair that we not expect them to do that.
He's our employee. We supervise him. The
Yeah.
council supervises T2, and he's
Okay.
engaged in a civil suit.
Maybe it's a relationship.
But you have an employee who used executive session information and used, I'm assuming, email that he'd sent or that had been sent to tribal council
That's-
from the defendant, if we want to use really legal terms, from the defendant to the tribal council in an email, and he has that information and used it. You just said earlier that that is confidential information. So you have an employee who has broken confidentiality in executive session and has used confidential information in now a public lawsuit. I would expect that you would discipline him for that.
Yeah, you need 5 votes to that for Andy. The majority. is not gonna do it.
Then make the motion and let everybody come to make the record and let the tribal council or the general council see where people fall.
Right.
If you're not willing to stand up to the law and hold people accountable to it, then let that be shown. And let that be shown that those of you who are on tribal council are willing to hold people's feet to the fire, even when the other side has the majority and doesn't hold their feet accountable.
So I agree with you 100%, and this is not the first time we've actually suggested that to the minority. To
All
just
I'm
at
saying
least-
is we got 3 people who are on council,
Let me-
and
let me-
the call for the answer, or the call for the question should be made.
And let me tell you what happens in those very same situations, because we've asked for the same thing in the past, and there have been council sheets that are put out, and they go unsigned, and they don't have a majority. So they sit there with the 3 or the 4, and the other 5 don't ever sign it one way or
So
the other.
that's happened in this case?
I don't know in this case, but it happens on things all the time that never get
So I
initiatives, and so.
believe that, and I mean, it's been a while since I've been on council, but it used to be that 3 could bring up anything onto a tribal council meeting with the signatures of 3 tribal council members. So put it on a general council, or put it on a tribal council meeting and call for the question.
So you're talking about 3 people can sign and request an item be put on the agenda?
Sure,
Okay,
call for the question.
okay.
And let people, if someone makes a motion and someone seconds it, there has to be a vote. Let there be a vote. And let the general council at least see that you're willing to stand up and take a stand and hold people accountable. If the other 5 say, no, we're not gonna do it, at least you can now go to sleep at night. Because if you sit silently, I don't know how you sleep at night.
Cheryl, go ahead.
The only flaw in all of that is, and that's why I prefaced my first comments about HR decisions are confidential.
So we may not even do the public records ordinance be able to see that vote if it were to take place ultimately. Got
There's
it.
nothing confidential there. My sister was in our program, John, and every time election comes up, here comes this big flood of crap that what's her name, Trudy, invented, and just so that it looks bad. And the thing about voc rehab is it has so much money in there. That my sister got 11% of some damn whatever. But the bottom line is, her services were minutia compared to, our program actually bought an individual, one of those trailers for long haul trailing, one of those great big ones that go down the road. You see it's 1, 2, or 3. We only bought him the one, so he could go into business for him. Now that was not, the thing where we drew the line is we weren't like Warm Springs, we wouldn't buy cars. We didn't buy cars for people, even though the CFR says very clear to do any of those types of things. But every year that thing comes up again, and every year, and I just ignore it because I think, yeah, you're dumbass, but nonetheless, I mean, because you'd have to start talking about other people who receive services that were equally more expensive or whatever, but it's always the one service that is related to me. So, you know, I don't know how you would, how, it's, our politics are so bent on vendetta, and so, I gotta annihilate that family. That family cannot ever raise their head ever again in our tribe. That we've kind of gotten away from what politics are, which is who has the better idea? Who do we think is gonna move us a little farther forward than what we already have? Because what we got here is just kind of like, you know, the dawn where you kiss the ring and that's the way it works.
No, I agree, Patty, and I think, you know, we're largely all saying the same thing. And unfortunately, you know, the law, we are not a nation of laws right now. We are a nation that is governed by 5 people that are a majority. And until we get a new majority that will actually change the laws so that, of the Constitution, so that we can't just have a new majority come in and change things again and decide what gets out and what doesn't, because that's what we have right now. And I think right now, you know, I agree to some extent, Andy, that the minority, you have an obligation to still stand up and say it's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. But at the same time, you know, you try that a few times, you do that a few times, and it still doesn't get out. You know.
I don't know, I've never done anything like that, so.
Well, yeah, that's expecting a lot.
What you're talking about.
Well, it's expecting a lot.
I've never done anything.
Well, and I think what I'm trying to say is that that's expecting a lot of somebody to continue to beat your head on a wall and not get anywhere, but continue to beat. You step back and you figure out, you try to do other strategies. You try to, you know, organize and get that majority so that we can change it. And that's what the PAC's been doing. Like I said, we've evolved over time, trying to figure out a way to get a new majority so that these things we're fighting for, we don't have to fight for anymore. You know, that we would prefer the tribe had candidate forums and made this kind of thing accessible for all members. We prefer that, you know, transparency was rooted in our Constitution, so we wouldn't have to fight to get people elected to fight for this stuff. But I you know, at the same time, I you know, being in a minority, you know, having worked in DC in a minority, it's high expectations there, and I just, you know, I think we need to, you know, they will make the efforts, I'm sure, from time to time, but at the same time, there has to be, you know, you don't continue beating your head on the wall. So I want to, okay, so we got enough time for 2 more questions. Were you going to say something? Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I wanted to kind of comment that there's a statement here in one of the candidates' things that talks about when I was taken off council. But they raised this, that I was booted off of council and that they never even asked me that I almost died. I was extremely sick. I was at OHSU, but they put this in a comment that I was booted off of council and that I had done something, the other 5 that put me back on council. Those are the kind of things that put people in a position where they have to defend themselves. I didn't go out and tell the membership I almost died. I didn't tell the membership I had to go to OHSU and have blood taken out of me. I didn't share those because those are private, confidential medical problems. But someone has put that on the internet today, so now I have to defend myself about that. So, you know, when we talk about accountability, you would think that that person or people would come and ask you those kind of questions. What happened? Instead of believing the worst and writing the worst or an innuendo of the worst. And it happens all the time. So accountability is, for new council or council, it needs to be really open, and it needs to be a higher level of a code of ethics that people believe you, people trust you, they know what you say is going to be the truth, and that there's not the 5 majority, that they're all working together and working together as a team. And a team is a team. There are so many things that can be accomplished when you work as a team instead of always having to go to work and wondering what the heck is going to, what are they going to do to you today? Because that's how it was my last 3 years. What are they going to do to me today? And it should never be that way. So I
So-
kind of digressed, but.
Thank you. And so real quick, I'm gonna try and get some more control back into the meeting because we only have a half hour and I want to have 2 more questions. I know Brenda, let me speak to it real quick, Brenda, because I read the same comment, Kathy, and my perception of what I read was completely different from the way you took it, just so you know. I felt that comment was defending you, actually saying that it was wrong when it occurred. And that because previous council members had missed 3 in a row too, and nobody batted an eye, I think was the quote, the term that was used there. So I don't think that candidate who's sitting here intended any malice at all. I think she was actually defending you in her statement. So that was me objectively reviewing it. So let's get back to some questions here. We got one more question from the audience and then one last one. All right, Brenda, go ahead.
Sorry, I just really need to speak for myself. I am that candidate, and I was defending Kathy. I was pointing out the process, the unfairness, the power struggles, and who gets to do what, and then who doesn't get to do anything. It was 100% not a slam on Kathy. I did not mention her name. I mentioned other people, and it was a storyline to bring the point across about the unfairness.
Lonnie, please.
I drove up to Washington.
Sorry, Debbie.
I drove up to Washington last week, and I seen the nice new sign up there that says where our competitor's casino is going to be setting. My opinion of our casino right now is that it's very underwhelming and average. We have never marketed it as if we had any competition in the world. And we didn't have a lot of competition, but now we are going to have it. And, we're going to have to do something completely different than what we've been doing for the last 20 years, or else we're going to lose our ass.
So, Kathy, and so...
Comments?
Yeah, so this was actually the very first question we asked at the very first Grand Ron one, so maybe I can ask folks to just briefly do it, because it is recorded from the Grand Ron one, this very question. But Kathy, Ann, and then we'll come down here.
You're absolutely right, Monty. We did a study on that. That's one of our biggest arguments, that we will lose 45% of our revenue. That's our argument in court. So if we lose 45% and we know that that's happening, you would think that we would be scrambling to do something. So we started a plan B, and we had meeting after meeting after meeting, and plan B just never got off to a start. We put a team together, all of our executive team together, to come up with something that we knew needed to be done to fill in that gap for that 45%. And again, I'm going to go back to the majority of council. They didn't want to do those kind of things. And I think to your question about the casino, it's mediocre. It is. It's been mediocre for the last 10 years, I think, or 9 years at least. We haven't even finished remodeling the other rooms. There's still some from the original, when we first built the casino. We should have been reinvesting into our casino, and for whatever reason, it's still doing well. But if you look at 45% gone, we still need to have some kind of a strategy. And maybe the board does know that. I don't know. I don't know who's on the board now, but the board doesn't know that.
No, none of us here are on the board anymore.
But you're still responsible to know those kind of things of what the business is doing, even though you're not on the board. So you have a majority of council. There's a majority of council on there now, isn't there? Who have, a lot of them have never owned a business or done business, or maybe had a janitor business, and maybe one of them had an asphalt business. But the rest of them that are on that board, they don't have a business background. We got rid of all of those. We didn't. The majority of council got rid of those people that had financial backgrounds, education,
I used to be on there.
a master's degree, 2 master's degrees, we got rid of all those people. And so I believe it's the way it is because that's the reason why. You don't have those visionary thinkers to think outside of the box in regards to making it a #1 destination resort, because there's nothing to do there but eat, sleep, and gamble, and that's about it. And in today's world, people are looking for entertainment, and all people don't gamble. They do other things. That's why people go to Las Vegas, because there's so many different kinds of things to do. And so, I hope I answered that question.
McAllen's Casino, I personally believe, is going to be having a huge effect on our tribe. And if this 45% is correct, I believe, and I'm going to throw a number out there. I can't swear to it, but I think I remember hearing that we make about $130 million a year off that casino. I'm looking at you, Chris, like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Net or gross?
Gross.
I'd say more than that.
More than that.
Okay, 150 million? Well, let me just use 150.
A lot.
Okay. Okay, so we make that. 45 million, 45% of that is half that, almost half. So even if it's the first year, if we lose 45% of 150 million, you're looking at $75 million gross. And operation costs for that casino, say that's 50 million to operate on an annual basis. So now we're looking at $25 million to operate our government, and per capita, I believe our health is 22 million. So, 17. So, okay, 17. So now we're looking, I just want people to realize what we're looking at as candidates running for tribal council. The heyday is gone, and we need people with fresh ideas and vision to be on council now. We don't have time for complacency, or we need strong leaders that are going to make tough decisions, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard, because we have to do the best we can to take care of our membership. And it's real. I've been saying it for a long time. I can't believe 20 years have gone by. We've been warned. We were told we were going to get 15 good years. You better be ready. We got 20. There needs to be some planning for the future. There's a lot of work, and it's going to mean that sitting at the table, not flying off to a conference here, sitting at the table and making plans for our future.
John was next, and then we'll share.
Oh, sorry.
Oops. Absolutely. You know, and the ideas only come if a majority will buy into it. That is the struggle. It's like I have had the day I sat on council. You know, I've went as far as, trying to look at the ideas, if they want a pool, whatever, then put a pool down there. So it's all for everybody. It becomes family oriented also too, It always seems to get in my face. You know what? They're only there to gamble, But like Kathy said, if it's not designed as a destination, resort, or what it be, of the other amenities that can be placed there for revenue, then like you said, all you're going to rely on is somebody to come and pull money out of their pocket and put it in a machine or eat at the buffet, or even go to a concert, which I don't think they're overly profitable. This idea has to change like that, so that, you want other things to do. Maybe if a husband and wife comes, well, then maybe only the husband likes to gamble. So what's the wife gonna do? End up sitting in a room watching TV? Well, she can only watch TV for so long, whatever else. But why isn't there something for her to do, like have a spa, whatever, get her hair done, have her nails done, whatever. At least we're gonna create, some other type of, revenue from that. They want to bring their family type thing, either have a pool or something there for the kids to. I've been in other large casinos, and it's the conversations that you hear in the elevator about how much fun they had while they were at that casino. About there was shopping there. There was, the kids had a blast in a pool. The ladies just came from the spa. I even think of it, and when Kathy and I worked at Non-Itch, when we went out of Seattle, Tillicum Village, thinking of those things to do, about involving our culture then, and now teaching people about who we are, who are Grand Ronde people, about having, an open, salmon bake, and being able to maybe come and do, start a basket or, make things like that. I try to tell them, I says, you know what, somebody would pay $1 bazillion to be an Indian for a weekend, so that they do that. Being able to have tours on our reservation about seeing who we are, those types of things, having, cultural, presentations there. I loved it to where that the Tillicum Village out of Seattle is that they brought you in, you paid for your thing, but they're watching a salmon cook over a pit there, and they march you into a room, and then they do theater, and you ate your salmon dinner watching the theater about their legends and stuff, who those people were, who the tribe was, and then they march you out another door, and then you came through and watched all the demonstrations about carving and basket weaving and beading and everything, and your exit was basically out the gift shop where, boy, it's like you got excited, now you want to buy the stuff, and then you were back onto the ferry and back to Seattle. I thought, at least that's there, or have a another plank house or something like that where they can spend the night, in a plank house, to really have the idea of like, this is how our ancestors lived. So I mean, there's other thing, but the other thing is, like you said, you got to be forward thinking. You got to be willing to say that this is where our tribal dollar should go, in that sense, about promoting who it is to do that. I mean, I even had an idea, said, wow, if we're going to be able to open another casino or something, whatever, who knows, governors change and whatever else, or maybe a compact could change and stuff too. I've always said, what, Portland doesn't have a Space Needle. What a great idea to put a casino on top of a Space Needle, in Portland. Have them come. So, but it is about, you can't be one thinker and get supported, by 4 other ones. So that's about the buy-in, but, I guess how Andy says, I guess too, I would say, I guess I'll just continue banging my head, I guess, until I start looking like a unicorn, I guess. So it's like, so.
Yeah, I did see a couple times actually.
I was trying to be good.
It's all right.
I appreciate the question. It's a critical juncture that the tribe has been out at for quite a while. I know that a few years ago, when the tribe entered into a lawsuit, Kathy and I traveled to DC and interviewed the attorneys that would defend us and push forward our case. And so they have been on board ever since and have been looking at every strategy that they can. I feel that they're a very qualified law firm to defend us, so that's one iron in the fire. We also, as far as the tribal council, looked at various plans to to defend our casino and the revenues basically that we have. We, looked at and continue to look at ways of minimizing a loss if the casino there does come up, and I say if, because I'm not convinced it will. I believe it will be somewhere, but not at the location that they're at. As with other casinos, we've met with them and asked, about ways that we could partner, bringing forward our expertise and other alternatives, perhaps by financing, other ways to become a partner so we can share with the revenues that are there. We haven't gone that far in this instance, but I know that that's a strategy we have used before. One of the things that I did while I was the chair was to expand our compact to include leasing of any machines in our facilities where other tribes could do that, and we would then come up with a methodology for the share that we would have for any of the machines that belonged to that tribe. That has never moved past that yet, but it's certainly something that I think that we're ripe to do, and it's something I'm very interested in doing, or I wouldn't have pushed forward that initiative to begin with. The other things that we know about our gaming facility is that women contribute to the greater extent the revenues that are made there. And it's an untapped resource that we need to create the kind of venues that have been talked about by many of the candidates here to make sure that the female clientele's needs are better served than they are right now. I believe that the facility, it's all about, we need a fresh look. We need to be able to do more. I know that as far as our spending patterns, we have reduced the amount of loans that it's taken, loans from ourselves to upgrade the facility, but it does need to be stepped up. There are a lot of I guess, ways that in the strategy, what we're calling a Plan C, that are being folded into, and I would say this, I have never once relented from doing more to expand our presence to where our population base is. You know that if there's a greater population, there are more people who will spend money there. But, I don't want to keep hammering on the same old issue, but unless you're in the majority, it seems like there's an aversion to going to the Portland area. I don't know why, but that's something that we've been fighting. I believe we've come a little further over that hump in the past, perhaps 6 months than before. So, it's persistence, but we do need to have more that will agree that that is a good thing for our people. Move to the Portland area or do something else there. Perhaps find a way to offset any losses that might come to Spirit Mountain. If we're configuring another casino, we know that other tribes in Oregon have 2 casinos, one class 3, one class 2. We are visiting them, and so my hope is, and I will continue to make sure that the issue doesn't die. We just can't allow that to happen.
Brenda, Cheryl.
I completely support making our casino a destination. I think this is another example of the members' voices not being heard. We've talked about this for years. I can't think of a meeting that I have been to since we retired and moved home 20 years ago that we didn't talk about economic development and how we needed to move away from our dependency on the casino. I think, I addressed this a little bit in my letter about decisiveness and pushing that, really pushing our tribal, our council members to be decisive. 15 years and we're not moving away from the casino still. I love going to Seven Feathers, and there's nothing like going in a sauna after you have cigarette smoke all over you and getting it off of you. I love that. I would like to see hiking trails, biking trails around the casino, some healthy outdoor stuff. I guess I'm frustrated, just like everybody else, that we're still talking about this 20 years later. But I do support updating the casino and making it someplace great.